All right, hey, we're working on this wonderful boat painting, simple, loose, fun. We're going to show you all the steps and methods that you need to do to create this painting. We're going to have the palette, of course, at all times on the video with all the color mixes that we're going to use. We have our photograph that we're working from, our reference photo, and then we have our painting. We're going to show you how to draw this first in pencil really quickly, efficiently. We just cover some details on maybe layout, so you know, we want to make sure we're keeping that ocean, distant ocean, you know, about halfway across the painting, you know, this way vertically, and then getting our boat kind of situated right in the center, somewhat, pretty much to the center of the painting, because that's the star of our show, the boat. And other than that, it was little details on some shadowing, but other than that, we're gonna have a real fun time creating this painting. So let's get started, and we'll get going with our pencil drawing in just a second. All right, well, we just saw the finished painting, and we're just going to kind of, again, really key in on just simplicity, working quickly, not getting too caught up in really fine details or superficial details. We're going to try to just get this done quickly, and that is the loose look that everyone seems to just love in watercolor. I know myself, I always get comments in the comment section, or people email me. Some of our great friends here that we have on our channel, they'll email me and say, Chris, how do I make looser paintings? What's the secret? You know, and I always just say the same thing. It's just a matter of once you're used to your subject matter. So if you were to draw and paint this painting 5 or 6 times, you would notice that each time you paint this painting, you would just get a little bit more familiar with it, and you'd be able to go a little bit faster, and that would kind of translate into being more of a loose painting. Versus when you're first painting it for the first time, it's a little more like you're going a little slower, you're more hesitating here and there, and that's totally normal. Anyone will do that, including myself. So I'm not claiming that I have any quick, you know, path to success with any one individual painting. All I'm saying is that if you work with a certain subject matter, after a while, you get more familiar with it by drawing it and painting it, and then you'll just really realize that it'll go easier and smoother, and your paintings will just look looser. So that's what we're going to do here, is just kind of key in on that idea of let's keep things simple and get things rendered quickly and get things painted in an expeditious fashion. So here I just wanted to say the first thing we kind of usually note is the design. What's the design of this painting? Well, we see that sailboat that's sitting here on the beach is like the star of the show in this painting. So that's going to be the most prominent thing we have here in the painting, and it takes up most of our picture frame here. And then we notice that there is some other, you know, counter parts to this. The pier going out here, and maybe some of that little bit of structure out on the pier that might be like a boathouse out there, or maybe just a lookout or something. And then you have your distant ocean horizon line. I think we'll leave the tree out of this painting, and we'll just keep it more simple, so we won't put that tree in. We'll just leave that out. And then, you know, that's really the sand and the ocean. That's really like the main components of this. And so what we'll do is we'll just kind of notice. I'll take my Sharpie just to make a couple hash lines on this tape, as we're going to get our composition kind of here laid out. So we notice that this is not quite halfway up the paper or halfway up the picture frame, the boat, the top of the boat. It's a little bit lower. So over here, we could always measure with a tape measure or a ruler and say, well, I think this is about 10 inches here. Let's take a look. We have our ruler, and we say, oh, it's 8.5 inches high vertically. So 8.5 inches is like 4 1/4 inches. That would be the halfway point. 4 1/4 and 4 1/4 is 8.5. So that's about 4 1/4 there. And we said that this was a little bit lower than halfway. Maybe we'll leave it halfway. We'll leave it halfway. That should be fine. If you want to go a little lower, fine. Let's do that. There we go. A little bit lower than halfway. And that's really the main hash mark we want here is just so that we start out correctly and have our sailboat and our pier and our distant ocean sort of starting out here in the vertical alignment. And then our boat is pretty much not quite centered. It's a little bit off center. That'll be easy enough when we draw the painting to accomplish that. So we really are just looking at that main vertical division of the ocean, distant ocean horizon line, and the sand and the beach below, and then the sky. Now that we have that idea where we just want to make sure we start out pretty much accurate to what we're looking at here in the photograph, we could have problems, obviously, if we started our ocean here. If we started our ocean like way up here on the painting up here, and we started up this high with that ocean, it would totally change the way the painting looks. So that's why we do make that real important point of let's get that vertical line, space division in our painting right from the start, and then we're kind of really starting off on the correct foot here. So once we have that, we could just certainly, and I'm just using a number 2 office and school pencil here. You can go across, you can measure using a ruler again if you wanted to. So if you wanted to just be pretty accurate with your lines, which there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's better to measure in the beginning, and then once you kind of get the feel for lines being level like this, level or vertically plumb, once you start to get the feel for, let's say, straightness and plumb and level, when you get those, some of you already have that talent of just looking at things long enough that you kind of have the feel for proper level and plumb lines. Some of us, when we first start out, we didn't have that. So we have to say, well, we had to measure when we first started so that we didn't go way off on our marks and our lines. So here it's 1, 2, 3, we said 4 1/4. This is a little bit different right now. So we're looking at, let's use centimeters because my ruler is actually, so 9.5 centimeters. I just come over here like this, 9.5 centimeters, and I make a mark there, and then I just come over like this with my ruler, and it's about like that. So that's going to be our distant ocean horizon line there, like that. That's our first thing we accomplish with our pencil drawing. Then the next thing we say is let's get our boat, and the boat is kind of leaning like this, so you can always just take your pencil, even if you wanted to, like this, and just take it and just move it over here and transfer your pencil on the same angle like this, like that over here. And the only thing is we notice that the top of the sailboat is right where the horizon line of the ocean is, or the top of the pier. So what we could do is kind of ask ourselves, how far over is this start of this boat from the right to the left? And we could just say, all right, that's about 1/3, I think, across the painting. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Again, you could measure it, but I'm thinking if you go 1/3 over this way, 1/3 of the, you're pretty good. Then you have that there, start of the boat there. Then we notice that the boat has that angle to it. So we could always start out first and do that. And then we kind of look and see, do we have that proper angle? And it does look pretty good. Then you can take your pencil again and just say, all right, there's the angle. Move this over here. And it looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks like the proper angle. So we have that there pretty much set. Then we find the center of this line, and that's going to be where our mast is, our sailboat mast. And that we'll use a ruler for. And we'll just take our ruler like this, and we kind of see it's like this. And at the top of the picture, you can see how it's there. So it should be about here, somewhere in around here, that mast should be going like that. And then we just do that. Make a line across here, like that. Okay, now we have our mast. Then we have a few cross members there. So we can always go up and look and just say, okay, about there and there. Cross member there. And then another one here. Two. Looks good. We also have some rigging lines that come down, so you could also just maybe do a very, very light pencil line, barely visible. I'm not even going to do it. You probably won't even see it on camera here on the video, but I'm making a very, very super light pencil line there for those rigging lines right there. That looks pretty good. And then later on we'll use a needlepoint brush to paint in maybe some of those lines. Or we could just even leave it the pencil lines. That might be fine. But you can see we're already starting to build everything that we need here. Now the boat, we're going to just continue to create the boat here so that comes in like this a little bit. And then as I come down here, it comes in like this. And then right where the mast is, that's going to be where the keel is here. And so we come down here and make that like so. And then this, we're going to do the same thing over here. We'll come over here, take our line like this, like that. Then we'll take this thin trim that goes across the top of the boat, which is orange, looks beautiful with maybe a blue stripe or black stripe underneath it, like that, and we're going to go right across like this. And then we'll make that next line, that darker, we'll draw that second line underneath that first top orange paint that's along the top of the sailboat, the trim. And as you can see, we really are starting to look like we have a really good simplification of this scene. Then we could also come across here and then over here like this, and that's the blue, green, like it's kind of a turquoise blue. Maybe I'll just make this a little bit wider there. Okay, and there's a lot of shadow under this boat, so we're really going to have a lot of shadow, and I'll draw on that shadow line right now, like this. As you can see, lots of shadow here. And this will be fun to paint, the shadow. Trust me, you're going to have a fun time painting in that shadow, because it just kind of creates that drama and that excitement in a painting of the shadow, and there's some weeds and seaweed and things on the ground too. And then we have even more shadow, lighter shadow, over here by this side of the boat. I'll just put that in a little bit there, which is right here. And then over here is more really bright sunlight on the sand, so we're going to leave that kind of, we do have a little bit of, I think we have a small ladder that goes into the boat for those who want to, maybe that are working on the boat perhaps. They're doing some patchwork to the boat, maybe doing some sanding and painting and working on the interior of the sailboat. There, they have a ladder set up on the beach here, so you can get into the boat quicker and easier. And there's a little bit of a shadow over here too. Maybe there's something over here to the left that we don't even realize. There's other things that are creating some shadows, so let's just use what we have here. Make sure we get some of them shadows in like that. That looks pretty good. It actually kind of ends where the ladder is, the shadows. And you can make it go further and make it go in like this, the shadow. You could change things a little bit, take some artist liberty. But I think we've done a lot of drawing so far. We've done a lot of drawing so far, and I think we'll just take a quick break now. It's good to take breaks. Maybe if you're working 15-20 minutes on a drawing, great to take a break, and this way we could get a little bit of a rest, relax a few minutes or so, 5 minutes or so, come back, and then we already feel refreshed, and then we can finish up, and we'll do our pier here over on the right-hand side. And I think we'll be kind of set. We'll be ready to paint. And again, we're looking to do this painting quickly to keep it loose and fun. And I'm hoping you're having a great time. And we're enjoying this process of painting loosely with watercolor. And I know a lot of people like to learn about painting loosely. So I constantly, hopefully I'm putting it enough in my videos that you enjoy it. And again, we're creating videos here on my channel week after week, month after month, and year after year. So there's no a delay, or I'm always working every week to create new videos. So let's take a break. We'll come back and then we'll start painting after we get our pier drawn in, which should only take us about a few minutes, and then we should be ready to paint. All right, we're fired up and we're getting back working here. Let's keep drawing here to get our drawing completed. So we said we wanted to create this pier here. So I'm going to take the pier and then I'm going to realize that it sort of is on a slight angle. It's actually level and the ocean is tipped like this. I don't know what happened here with this photograph, but we'll just leave it pretty much a little bit lower here. And we'll just maybe draw a rectangle. So if we draw a rectangle, making it, let's do this. Let's exaggerate it a little bit. We want to make the rectangle thinner here and wider here. So it's thinner here and wider here, and that gives you that little feeling of that it's going into the distance, the pier. Okay, and that's it. And we make the top of the pier with a little bit of light. So we're going to have a little bit of that lightness on top, the light striking the top of the pier. And then the rest is just really simple. We're just going to draw some vertical lines. And we're going to really just paint this in. So we're not going to have too much of a worry about that. As the pier goes into the distance, it's darker looking. So you can see how it's darker here in the distance because there's more shade and there's more or less visibility seeing through the pilings that are there. So there's pilings that hold up the pier, and as you go into the distance, the actual pilings block the light so that you really can't see through it and see the ocean behind it. But here closer to us, you'll see that little bit of ocean right through there. So that's what we want to capture, that same idea. And we'll do that with the brush. Once we just get the pier drawn in, we're okay. And then maybe we will do a little bit of this. Looks like there's a small, perhaps a boathouse in the distance here. So we'll just draw that too. And we'll just make a roof on there and some windows like this. Some small windows at the top. And I think that's all we need. And the rest is good. And again, we're going to leave the tree out here, the bushy kind of like leaves and stuff on the tree, because that kind of you can always delete things out of your painting. So I just thought, like, when I looked at the photograph, like, well, I like trees and everything like that. It looks usually beautiful in paintings, but for this painting, we're just going to focus in, make it the boat, the ocean and the sand and the pier, and that's it. And we won't try to like put too much stuff into the painting to, and overwork it and, overcrowd it with too many things. So I think it's better to delete some things out of here, especially this. We should delete out this tree. I think it looks better without it. And we'll try it the way it is now. Let's get painting. First thing I do, I just show you my brushes. Basically, we'll use 3 brushes for this painting. I think is fine. You can use even 2. I think really the 2 I would use would be, if anything, might be the number 8 travel brush, a Skoda travel brush, my Charles Reed series travel brush. I have my Alvaro Castanet needlepoint brush for the rigging. I definitely want to have that because I like that for fine details. And then I'm going to use a little bit of a larger brush too. This is a number 14 Kolinsky Sable Maestro brush. It's actually a Da Vinci Maestro natural hair brush. These are all natural hair brushes. So I think these 2 we can start with, and we'll make this. We'll use this brush last to do the sky and the sand because it's kind of large. We want to kind of go quickly. All right. So we kind of have everything we're going to need. I'll put those other brushes to the side. We're going to just use our number 8 travel brush right now. And what I'm going to do is just say to myself, what do I want to do first? I want to do the darks first. So the first thing I'll do is, for my darkest paint, it's always the same. French ultramarine blue and burnt umber. That's my dark mix right there. You'll notice that if you've been painting with me for a while, Great to be working with you again, and thanks so much for coming by on my channel all the time and painting with me. And so you'll always know that's my favorite two dark colors I will use: burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. A little bit of burnt sienna in there too. I usually like to mix in just to give it that little bit of a warmer, like kind of a reddish color to it. And then that's fine. So we have that to start with, and then we just do a quick, and this is where we're just gonna, let's do this and have fun, and we're gonna make it quick and easy. So I'm just doing that quick trim paint right underneath the top of the boat, the sailboat. And you can see I just did that trim color really quick. The pier, let's do the pier too. We're just gonna work on over here to the pier and just take that and that dark and go right across like so. And then we're going to create those pilings, and they're kind of close together over here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, I'm not looking to make it perfect. We're kind of keeping with the idea of let's move quickly through this painting and have fun and keep it fresh and loose. So, all right, we've already got our stripe here, which is that very, very dark, which I'm saying let's start with the darks. And then over here, the pier, we could take, for the pier, we can start adding in, we'll add some beautiful green, sap green, viridian green. So we'll use some viridian green and sap green, a little bit of cerulean blue. Okay, so that's kind of like a nice, cool watercolor. You can even make some cool blues over here. And then we also have, again, we want to notice that is like this. A little bit of a Prussian blue, like that. Maybe even a little bit of yellow. Maybe we could put in some cadmium lemon yellow there. That might work. All right, that's good. And we'll just do this. We'll just go right underneath the boardwalk, the pier, and do this like that, and make that shadow under there. And I think that's good. So now you see how I made this shadow a little bit lighter, so it's not as dark. And then we could take more of our darks now again, and we'll do some of the details on the boathouse up, or I should say this might be like, yeah, it might be a boathouse over here. And we'll do a couple of the windows, nothing too fancy. Like this. A little bit of shadowing under there. And that's good. Now, let's get some exciting color going. Let's create the ocean, the distant ocean. So that would be French ultramarine blue, a little bit of cerulean blue, maybe some viridian. Okay, so what I do is I rinse off my brush, dry off my brush onto a tissue or paper towel, or you could use a sponge too. Even sometimes I'll have a sponge next to my my water container that you can just set next to your water container, so you can just take your brush, rinse off your brush, and then maybe tap a little bit of water onto a sponge next to your water container, and then you come over and pick up your colors. I think the thing you'd want to kind of notice about watercolor is you probably don't want to have too much water in your brush when you're working, so you want to constantly, after you rinse your brush at least, you want to tap it a few times to get some of that water off the brush, and then you can come over to your palette and pick up some paint that you've mixed. And sometimes you just use straight paint out of the palette and you won't even add any water to it, but we're adding a little bit of water to our paint right now. So let's do the water, the distant ocean. And that's just the blue that we just mixed, French ultramarine blue, and we'll have some more of that blue in the distance over here, like that. Look how good that looks, just getting some of that ocean in there. Now you leave some white foam and crashing waves, right? Like that. That looks fantastic. When you do work that into your paintings, you'll see it looks more realistic. And then we'll just take some more of the viridian now and less of this French ultramarine blue and cerulean, we'll go into the viridian, and now it's kind of a beautiful turquoisey green over here. And you just work it up to the edge of the boat, so you kind of want to keep that in mind. You won't want to paint into the boat. You'll want to keep your washes right about like that, up to the edge of the bow of the boat. And there's some more ocean over here too, so I will put that over here like that. But quickly, just 1 or 2 strokes, because we don't want to blend in those dark pilings that we painted in. We don't want to keep going over that. So if you can imagine, once these pilings, these darks dry, and you have to let them dry a lot, once they dry actually 100%, then you can go over with 1 quick wash of green, like a viridian green, and just 1 brush stroke and go over it once or twice, and that's it. Obviously, if you keep going back and forth over these pilings, these darker pilings here, it's going to all blend in and become kind of like homogenized and become like a dark spot. So you want to just make sure you keep the keep these darks from being reactivated and smudged if you can. The other way to do it, if you don't want to take that risk, is you paint your ocean first and then paint your pilings and your pier on top of the blue. So that might be a better way to go, probably. Actually, that would be the way to go. But I do like to paint the darks first. But for maybe some of you that are just beginning, some of you that have more experience, you know what I'm talking about here, where you just got to like almost go across it one time with 1 or 2 brush strokes, and that's it. And you can get away with doing it and putting some beautiful water in there, and it's fine. But if you're just kind of starting out or you don't have a lot of experience with watercolor, then your best bet would be to leave this dark pier to last. That's the only thing you have to worry about, maybe. That's like the only part of this painting I think that's really could cause you a little bit of a difficulty. Other than that, the rest is kind of pretty straightforward and simple. And so we'll do the next thing is we're having some fun here. We're going to actually just take a paper towel, small piece of paper towel, and just clean our palette a little bit so I can get some more color over here. Maybe what I'll do is I'll clean this spot up here. And this way I can take some orange up here like this. And I'll put some orange there. I might just go straight into the palette like this. That's fine. And then I'll just go like this, and we're going to get that orange stripe going right across. Wow, look at that. 1 brush stroke all the way across. Looks beautiful. You can add a little bit of cadmium red to it. I think I'm going to do that. Cadmium red too. So cadmium orange, and then a little bit of cadmium red infused in there. And look how good that looks. All right, so now we got some real interesting, beautiful, impactful color starting to happen here. Next thing we'll do is let's work in some of that green. That's looking like turquoise green, I think, really. So we can come over here and get our best to probably take a paper towel, clean out ourselves another spot so we don't mix up our darks with our green. So there we have that. We made ourselves a nice clear spot on our palette. And we'll put our viridian in here. Like this. Maybe a little bit of chromium of oxide. Maybe a little more viridian. Maybe a touch of the yellow. Trying to get that just right, and a little bit of maybe cerulean blue. Maybe a little more cerulean blue. So I'm just trying to get that just right color. I think that looks pretty good. And I'll just take this brush again, the number 8, a Skoda travel brush, and we'll get that beautiful green. It's kind of like a turquoisey green in there like this. And then if you think you need to widen it up a little bit, you can always paint over your lines. Don't worry about being like super accurate with your lines. You don't have to always worry about, you can paint over your pencil lines if you want to here and there. Okay. And then I think we are doing pretty well with that. We could also maybe, we'll come up here. Actually, we'll do the mast last. We'll do the sky. We'll do the sky wash before we do the mast, painting the mast and the rigging lines. All right, and let's do a little bit of this dark here, a little bit of blue. We'll get this type of that shadow color in there, like this. Okay, and then maybe over here we have that other darker dark. Maybe that's a little darker. That's another shadow coming across this way here. Like that. There. And I think we're going to take a break. Maybe I will do just a touch of water though over here. Like that. Kind of matches over here somewhat. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll start wrapping up. I think we are pretty much almost finished. And again, that's what we're kind of our goal here on this video, on this tutorial, was to get this painting done quickly, efficiently, and not too much fuss, not too much muss, just kind of keeping it simple. And you'll see how it really does kind of right now finish up really nicely with just a little bit of sky wash. We'll finish up our mast and our rigging. And we'll also have a little bit of shadow under here on the sand, and we'll paint in some sand. But other than that, it's pretty much complete. Okay, so let's get finished. We'll get finished up. We'll just take a quick break. All right, let's get rolling here again. And so the next thing I wanted to do was just mention I'm going to empty my water. So I've worked quite a bit now, and with painting and rinsing off the brush. So I just add some fresh, clean water at least 2 or 3 times every time I'm creating a painting like this. I'm usually changing the water out 2 or 3 different times. Right now we're going to do some shadowing in this boat here, the sailboat, so I want to have fresh, clean water to work with. And then I'm just again going to start working some shadows in with some very light blue and bluish green, like the turquoise kind of colors. Here, I do that. Get a little bit of water in there. I don't want to go too dark. A little bit of that brown and grayish color, which is fine, like that. And if we just get a little bit of that shadowing in, and then even a little bit of the orange as well. A little bit of splashing like this. And again, I do like to use the tissue or paper towel or a sponge to dry off a little bit of the water so that I can use like a very, very dry brush to smooth out these washes as we're going here. And the same thing here, a little more kind of those shadows there with the grays, which I'm just using what we had up here, burnt umber and burnt sienna. And then I just blend them and try to follow the shadow patterns over here on the boat. So there is a little bit of shadowing here. This is the shadow side, some blue. Of course, we want blue there for the shadows. Okay, I think that looks pretty good for the shadowing. And we notice a little more orange over here too. So there's a little more warmer orangey shadowing mixed in with the cooler colors on this side over here. And it could be that there's something over here like another boat that's maybe like an orange or a red color, and it's kind of causing this side of the boat to have that like more warmer looking shadows, like those orangey red shadows. But whatever the case is, it looks good. Let's paint it in there. That's all we have to remember. If it looks good, then we're going to put it in. And there's some shadowing here that's a little darker. So I want to put that in there too over here, just like that. And these shadows will lighten up, of course. When we paint shadows, they do lighten up, sometimes quite a bit. Okay. Now that we have that shadow area painted, or actually the bow of the boat is in shadow mostly, because the sunlight is behind us. I forgot to mention at the beginning, you can always add your light source and kind of figure that out. And, you know, when you're starting out and you look at your photograph and you say, well, where's the light coming from? Well, this boat has a lot of shadow on the front here, so all we're just telling ourselves is, all right, let's notice that, okay, the light is sunlight's coming from behind us a little bit. So you can always take a little bit of make a spotlight insignia up here on your paper, just like that. And you just have the light like this. And then you have that kind of idea of the light coming from behind like this, like a spotlight shining forwards towards us. And that can be just a little bit of an insignia or a small note you can put on your paper when you're first starting your painting, just to kind of give yourself that bit of a place where you can always check back to when you're painting in shadows, or maybe, you know, penciling in some shadows with your pencil for yourself so that you don't forget something, you know. That would kind of be the perfect time to do it in the beginning. So now we'll use the larger brush we were talking about, the number 14, and we're just going to do a simple wetting of the paper with fresh clean water up top here, all the way across the top like this. Fresh clean water, just a little bit though, not too much. Then we again pick up a little more water in the water container, fresh clean water, and then we just put a little bit more on the paper over here toward the bottom, but not too much there, just intermittently, not filling it in all with the water. We want to leave it kind of spotty. But up top we do want to have it solid with fresh clean water, dampening the paper. Now all we have to do is just take some of our blue, just like this, the blue and the green that we had before, and we're just going to put it on the top like this, and just like that, and let the watercolor work itself. You know, watercolor is beautiful, it's fun, it's exciting, it works wonderfully just by, you know, kind of working with it just a little bit. Put some on there, let it kind of drip down a little bit, run down like that, and that's all we need to do. We leave a little bit of those white areas, like where we don't paint in everything. We kind of leave some areas where there's some clouds. And then if anything too, we just want to have a tiny bit of orange here along the bottom that we can mix in onto the very, very bottom of the sky, which is the horizon line of the sky. We just have a little bit of that orange mixed in there, red orange, but just a subtle amount, right? We don't want to go too much with that. But you can see it kind of looks very natural. The sky is always warmer, closest to the horizon line. If you put just a little bit of that orangey red, golden color, whatever, you know, just a little bit of that warm sort of a wash along the bottom of your sky, you're going to always have it looking very natural, very realistic. And that's what we did there. So now you can see we've really done most of the work to the painting. Next thing we're going to do is we can keep working right now. We can let this dry up top where the sky is, and we'll start working in our shadows by our sand here. So what I'm going to do is just take the idea of a darker shadow underneath here, underneath the sailboat, the bow of the sailboat, by the keel. And then there's also some shadows here on the sand, but I'm not going to get too incredibly detailed, and I'm going to leave these colors to be similar to what we started with. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'll mix in a little bit of that green too. And what I'm going to do is start going in and getting the shadows here with this large brush and put the shadows in. And with shadows, you don't have to worry. You just kind of get them in and leave them like this. They don't have to be too fancy, anything like that, right? And then as you work and your brush starts to empty out of your paint, that's perfect because that's what you want. And then we'll show you how when you let the brush just empty of its paint, like so, like we're doing right now, and we're getting that shadow in like this. Now you can see that you can take your brush and then dry off a little bit of the paint further. Take a little more of that paint off, and then you can get a little bit of the kind of that dry brushy look over here where it's kind of not. You can add a little bit of orange to that too. A little bit of orange paint to your shadows to warm up the shadows a little bit. And then what I did now is I rinsed off the brush, dry off the water, so I just have a damp brush now. And now I'm just going to try to do this, kind of mix in a little bit. And then here do the same thing. This looks a little bit more like a little more blue. So maybe we'll take some of the dark, mix it with the blue, and maybe a little bit of green. Like that. Dry off the brush then, once you get some color in there, and we'll just get these lighter bits of shadow here, which might be a tree up above that we don't see in the picture. So sometimes you'll get shadows and things that you really necessarily don't see the tree, but there is a tree above here that we don't see. You can see some of the branches over here, like leaves. So there's a tree above us that we just don't see. It's out of the picture, but it's putting this shadow here on the ground, on the sand. So that's all we wanted to do, is to sort of capture that too. And then we just put it in just like this, and this is, you can make it a little bit darker here and there, like this. Dab in a little bit of the dark bits of paint so that it kind of blends in like that. And there you can see how we've got our darker shadow in the bottom here, which looks really fantastic. And could add a few more little bits of darks there. But trust me, once this all starts to dry, you are going to have a really beautiful painting here. So there we have keyed in on the shadowing, the dark shadowing. We can now go back to our number 8 brush, travel brush. Let's go to travel brush, Charles Reed series travel brush. I have all my brushes, paints, papers, everything down below in the comments section if you ever want to shop around. I purchase all my items on Amazon. Makes it easier. It just gets delivered to my house like in 1 or 2 days, and most times. And I don't have to drive around and waste time and all that. I can just order it and it comes to my house, my studio, and then everything is much better that way. So you can see again the dark shadows here under the boat. We got that in, looks good. We will add a little bit of maybe some lemony yellow up here, and we'll just put a little bit of that lemony yellow very subtly, even blot it up a little bit, and then maybe rinse off the brush, dry off the water on the brush, and just maybe have a little bit of that lemony yellow on the sand of the beach. And if you put that little bit of that lemon yellow, cadmium lemon yellow on the beach sand, and even a little bit on the boat here, you could put, just kind of spot, put it on in little bits here, just little bits here and there, but very lightly, very subtly, almost like you can't even see it, just a little tiny bit, right? That adds to the beautiful dramatic warmth of the sunlight in the painting. So if you add that little bit of cadmium lemon yellow, you could even use cadmium yellow or even a little bit of orange too if you wanted to, but I think the cadmium yellow lemon will really accentuate the beautiful sunlight and warmth of the painting if you just add a little bit of that color in there when you're painting your paintings, whether it's landscape, seascape, city scenes, whatever it is. Any kind of painting where you're painting outdoors, you add that little bit of lemony yellow just in a few little locations. Then maybe too you can put a little bit up in the sky once the sky dries 100%. I always mention don't go into your washes if they're damp. You have to wait till your paper dries 100%. And that's about it. And then now you see how we have a nice, loose, beautiful painting. And maybe a little bit of shadow on this wonderful pier and this boathouse here. And then we can even make a little bit of some orange paint maybe on the top of the boathouse here. You could add a little bit of water And a little bit of that grayish color. You could do a couple splashes for some sand texture. So you could add some sand texture very, very closely in the foreground of your painting and the bottom of your painting. You can do some splashing like that. Add some texture. You can always lift it up too if it doesn't come out perfect, or if you oversplash somewhere, you can always lift it up fast with a paper towel or a tissue. No worries on that. And then what we'll do is we'll paint in the mast. And here the mast is white, blue, orange. So we have some different colors on the mast. Here's a little bit of an orange. Maybe I'll go ahead and get some cadmium orange here. Like that. Then some cerulean blue. We have a little bit of cerulean blue on the mast. So this mast is quite colorful. It's been painted. So someone is really doing a beautiful job of painting their sailboat and creating some nice color combinations on their mast to keep it exciting. And then it's white, so we can leave that white. You could put a shadow underneath the these cross members here. That. So I would do that. I would put some shadows under the cross members like this with the point of your brush here, like this. Just so we have a little more of that cross member on the masts kind of being visible. A little bit of shadow over here too on the mast up there. You could take a little bit of darks and make the mast a little bit darker up here so that it sort of accentuates it. And you can see it high up there like that. And then again, we said we were going to take our needlepoint brush and just take a little bit of that. And we're going to do some of the rigging with our needlepoint brush. So you could even take your needlepoint brush and just do a quick little couple of quick lines just like this. Doesn't have to be, you can just take them and do like a little bit of the line, not the whole line, just a little touch of it. You rest your hand on the paper. As long as the paper's dry, you're fine. And then you just do maybe like 1 inch of the line at a time. 1 inch there, fine. Do another inch, maybe here, another bit here, down to the boat, like that. So you can get some really nice details with your needlepoint brush here, again, like this, like that. Couple more. You can do a few just really loosely like that. And that's all. We have everything, I think, looking really good. We could do a little bit of the details of the paint on the side of the boat. So let's take that. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. I think what I'll do is I will actually just use straight paint. I'll just take a section or two. There was a little bit too much water in there, so let me just get straight paint, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, like that. Maybe a little bit of the cerulean blue. Okay, and then we're just going to do some quick. You can even just do some like very, very subtle lettering like this. Doesn't have to be spelling out anything like that. You can make up a word that you might think that you want to call the boat a certain name, like that. But I just put in a little bit of some detail there, but nothing too, definite. I wouldn't try to write out the name of anything. I would just try to. Maybe you could take a couple of the letters and make them, like I'll make a U there, and then maybe over here we'll make like something else like that. But I think that's fine if you just, the less detail you go with that, you're better off. And then you just do a quick little, like that. There's a little bit of a, kind of like a stenciled in icon for the people that own the boat. They might have a icon of some sort that they use for their boat, and that's that. And once I have that in, I'm pretty much feeling pretty good that this is a finished painting. It looks good. It's loose. Again, we talked about it. Let's keep things loose, free, fun, quick. We don't want to, again, we don't want to spend 4 hours doing this. Let's get it done fast. And again, you can kind of get in some details here. I wouldn't go too much with details in the distance. So when you're making something like these piers and structures in the distance of the painting, that's something where you wouldn't want to do much detail at all on that, because it's kind of like the just in the distance, soft, not too much attention on it. The star of the show is the sailboat. We have all the sailboat painted in really nicely. Like that. There's a little bit of this. I think there's a couple little bits of red and orange up here. It looks like some, maybe there's some flags at the top. The bow, so you just add a little bit of color up to the top. That looks really good. There's another, maybe a little bit of, like that. And you can always add a little bit of the wind to it. And that denotes the wind going this way. You could always do one more thing that sometimes is kind of sap green, and add some sap green and French ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt sienna to get a little bit of a dark, and then you can add a little bit of a dark wash out here in the distant ocean, as long as you keep that line straight. And if you worst comes to worst and you're afraid you can't keep that line straight out there in the distant ocean, by all means take a piece of tape and go across. We could even do it right now just so you kind of see how you can do that. You could take some artist tape like this and just go right across your painting. Put it right down just a tiny bit above the ocean, distant ocean. Like that. You see how I did that? Like that. Like that. Then you can take your darker wash, like let's say your green and blue and burnt sienna, and you can just kind of put that on there, like so, to get your distant ocean a little bit darker. Adds kind of like a more of a crisper line to your ocean, to your distant ocean line. And then I'll skip over the, I don't want to paint over the boathouse there. And then once you have your paint on there, you got your distant ocean, crisp line, like this. And like that, you can do a beautiful, little bit of that extra nice crispy dark line there. And then you can even add a little bit of water and soften it this way as it comes down this way. But that can sometimes add a little bit more excitement to the painting, where you see that really dark line across. Maybe you want to leave it a lighter blue. That's fine. You can experiment and do things. You can lighten up a few spots by just blotting up with a tissue or paper towel, like that. But I hope you had fun. This is pretty much everything I think that you can do for this painting without going overboard with too much details and fussing around too much. And what I'll do is, right now, we'll peel off the tape, and you'll see how good too it looks once you. I advise always taping your paintings with a piece of tape around all four edges, so that when you do finish your painting, and please always finish your paintings, even if you're halfway through it and you think, oh, it doesn't look good. Trust me, watercolors always look kind of like unfinished when you're working on them until you finish up all your washes and your paint. So always remember that. Finish your paintings all the way through, no matter what type of issues you may have. Something smudges, you spill paint, you splash too much and it looks funny, whatever it is, don't worry about it. Finish your painting all the way through to the end, peel off the tape and look at it, and then you'll say, all right, let's look at what comes out good. What can I improve on it the next time better? And then that's all you have to ever worry about, is you're just always looking for what's working really well. You're going to be doing that more and repeating that. Anything that's not working well and you find that you have made something like an error, you just say, oh, next time I want to make sure I kind of stay clear of doing this, that, or the other thing that you might find might be an error. And sometimes you might think, you know, sometimes one person's error is not really another person's error, so to speak. So it's all about what kind of look you want in your paintings. But for me, this is fine. It looks good. I'm happy with this. We kept it fresh, loose, quickly rendered. We did not spend too much time on everything. As you can see, we kind of just went through it pretty expeditiously. So again, thank you so much for painting with me and getting together. We're going to be back as soon as you can imagine doing more paintings. And again, I hope you'll subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, if it's your first time here, please subscribe so you don't lose a track of us here. And again, we do everything: boats, seascapes, landscapes, city scenes, flowers, portrait paintings once in a while, figure paint, a little bit of figure work in there once in a while. Still life, again, flowers. So we do everything watercolor. We just cover all the basics and fundamentals of all the techniques and methods that you need in watercolor. Each time you start a new painting, whether it's drawing or painting, we cover all those skills that you'll need to have right here on my channel. So I'm glad you're here. You're at the right place at the right time. And we're going to be back just before you know it with another video. So great to have you working. It's great to work with you, and we'll see you on the very next video. Okay? All right. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.